Let's talk about the man, the myth, the legend,
Mm.
Macho Man Randy Savage. A few weeks ago, we tried to do our best homage to Jerry Lawler. He was one of the most important people in your growth as a professional wrestler, and you were certainly a huge fan of his and massive respect for him. And another guy in that same vein is the Macho Man Randy Savage. When I say Macho Man to you, Jeff, what's the first thing you think of? Like when you imagine Randy Savage in your mind, what are you coming up with?
If we're just playing simple word association, I'd say competitor, like intense competitor. It's hard to put it into words. And, there's many people that have met Randy for the first time, and especially this happened, uh, later. They're like, hey, man, he really talks that way. He's really that intense. But Randy, I can't come up with enough adjectives. And like I said earlier, as I was reading the research on this last night and then this morning when I was doing cardio and just thinking about different things and how much my father respected Randy, and then I started thinking about Eddie Marlin, my grandfather. On the other side of my family, how much Eddie respected him, and then my grandmother Christine. And it's hard to kind of go back into this era, and people that are listening to this that are new fans and even old fans. I mean, Conrad, you're a historian, and I know with JR and Bruce and Tony and others that go back to prior, the I'll say early 80s, and certainly into the 70s. It's almost like it's a completely different world as it relates to professional wrestling, because before cable TV and just how the business was run and a handshake deal and the touring champions and all that. But Randy, they just broke the mold, and he was such a unique human being, which obviously made him an incredibly unique professional wrestler. And at his very, very core, that's what I think about. Randy would compete playing cards, having the best match, running a business, try to beat you to the town. He wanted to get his bag first. I mean, he competed at everything. You hear legendary stories about Michael Jordan wanting to compete on everything and hated to lose. Randy, um, super intense, just an incredible, incredible competitor. And I think at the very top of the list, that's one of the things, if not the biggest thing, that I respect out of Randy and learned from that.
As far as imagery goes, you saw him when he was in Memphis. You saw him when he was breaking in the WWF. You saw him at the height of the Mega Powers, and then Macho King, and then the long pants Savage in the WWF as a commentator, and everything he did in WCW, and even that cup of coffee in TNA. And we're going to talk about all that today. But when I say Randy Savage to you or the Macho Man, which one of those visually do you think about in your mind's eye?
Oh boy, Conrad. I think context is king, because when I think about, let's call him Memphis Randy,
Okay.
when he wrestled uh, Ricky Morton or Lawler. I mean, when he was in Memphis, and he was, look, you can still call him the Macho Man, but man, God, he was so reckless, and the short tights, and just kind of uh, he you felt when he walked to the ring. And man, this gets me back to my fandom, Conrad. And I don't know what year was did you see your first wrestling match live?
Probably 1989.
Okay, so we're into sports entertainment for sure,
Yes.
without question. So my earliest memories were, my first memory, ironically, is in Birmingham, Boutwell. We got to the town early, and Crazy Luke Brown hauled it across the stage and scared the living shit out of me as a little boy. I couldn't have been 10 years old. But going to the matches way back when, it was just a different aura. It was kayfabe, but it was just perceived different. Randy in the fairgrounds in Nashville, when I would go out there, look, I'm in the dressing room or half smart or not even smart at all to the business. But when Randy went to the ring, people, he just had that sense of recklessness. Like, this guy's going to go off at the drop of there. Thank you, Dave Silva. That picture says it all, folks. If you're listening to this, go to our YouTube feed. I'm telling you, this photo right here is an early Randy, but man, you just think this guy is going to come unhinged at the drop of a hat. So when I think of different images, that's one. And then you can, what you said, the superpowers, that was unbelievable. And then, when the era of Hulkamania, when big guys and big, Demolition, and I mean, they're just big guy after big guy after big guy. And when you watch Savage Steamboat, you go, wait, this felt like completely different. And it's on the same card. Man, Conrad, that's what I'm saying. We may talk hours upon hours on this because, by the time you got to WCW, Randy's obviously the main events of Mania under his belt and all this. But Randy walking to the ring, you go back and look at different photos. There were the guys that were in the NWO, if you will, kind of wore the same thing. T-shirt, and I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Hogan, Hall, and Nash, that they should have, but Randy never got out of gimmick. He always looked legitimately, and I'm not saying superstars in WWF, WWE superstar, but he always looked like a superstar. That was one of the things that, one of the first real, I don't say lessons, but man, he was a stickler about that and had no problem sharing that knowledge with me. Like, you need to always look the part. My grandmother would say, Randy, tell Jeff this or this and this. And, I get it that I'm supposed to get a lesson over here, but man, Randy always had unique looks, but it always dialed back to the Macho Man.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson here to tell you a little more about what AdFreeShows.com is all about. Get early, ad-free access to more than a dozen of your favorite wrestling podcasts every single week, starting at just $9. That's less than 20 cents an episode each month. And yes, you can listen to them all directly through Apple Podcasts or your regular podcast apps. How easy is that? Ad-Free Shows also has thousands of hours worth of bonus content and docuseries like Title Chase, Eric Fires Back, Conversations with Conrad, and The Insiders. Plus new series like The Book with David Crockett, Monday Mailbags with Mike Chioda and Nick Patrick, and a whole lot more. And you want to talk about early? You can't get any earlier than listening to the shows live. You can be a part of the live studio audience as we record the podcast. Plus, ride shotgun alongside your favorite childhood heroes for live watch-alongs, Q&As, and other interactive experiences every single month. Come on now, see for yourself what thousands of other wrestling fans from around the world have discovered, that AdFreeShows.com is the best value in wrestling. Check it out today, and hey, when you do, the first week is completely free. AdFreeShows.com.